In my second year of high school, I personally saw the boy I had a crush on being cornered in the public restroom by a group of female bullies led by Lin Nian. The surge of youthful hormones flooded my veins. And I, blinded by love, rushed forward to protect him fiercely. I took most of the blows for him, and the hardest kick landed right in my lower abdomen, directly causing internal bleeding in my uterus, which the doctor declared would make me permanently unable to have children. He stood by my bedside, gripping my hand tightly, tears hotly falling onto the back of my hand as he vowed, "Xiao Han, I will be responsible for you for the rest of my life." Later, he indeed took responsibility, with the support of my family's second-generation wealth and financial backing. He was elevated and eventually became a rising star in Haicheng. However, on the very night of our company's successful IPO celebration banquet, in the hotel's suite, he and Lin Nian's school bully who once tormented him gave me a big green hat. After the affair was exposed, the adulterous couple joined forces and used my Hermes scarf to strangle me from behind. In my dying suffocation, I heard my beloved husband's cold verdict, "Xiao Han, don't blame me. If it weren't for your inability to have children, I wouldn't have ended up like this." Then came Lin Nian's familiar and smug sneer, "Brother Ong, you should have told her long ago. Back then, me blocking you was just a little romantic game between lovers. If she hadn't meddled, we would have been together already." In endless regret, I died with my eyes wide open. When I opened my eyes again, hazy sunlight streamed through the classroom window, and chalk dust danced in the beams of light. I was reborn back to my senior year of high school. This time, I passed by that familiar public restroom again. Through the wall, I heard shoving and the malicious giggles of girls, and the slender figure surrounded in the middle was Xia Xiang. Only this time, there was no sound of his panicked cries and pleas for help that I remembered. Instead, I clearly heard his excited and flattering confession, "Nian Nian, I know you like me. Let's be together." So, the key auxiliary line for this problem should be drawn like this. Got it. Xia Zichang's slender fingers pointed at the math test spread out on my desk. His voice gentle, yet his ears tinged with a faint blush. I suddenly snapped out of the intense palpitations of my rebirth, my gaze falling on the youthful face of the boy before me. Yes, it was this face, this innocent yet deeply affectionate expression, that had deceived me for a lifetime. Yes, I understand now. I expressionlessly pulled back the test paper, my voice cold. Then I immediately lowered my head, no longer paying attention to the figure in front of me that instantly froze. "Young Han, how on earth did you manage to win over academic genius Xia? He's usually so aloof, never bothering to answer anyone's questions." My deskmate leaned in, lowering her voice, her tone full of gossip. "Could it be he has a thing for you? Interesting." I sneered inwardly, my nails almost digging into my palms. "Yes, extremely interesting. So interesting that after squeezing every last bit of my value, they teamed up with an old flame to send me to my grave. Maybe." I tugged at the corner of my mouth, my voice neither too loud nor too soft, just loud enough for those in the front row to hear. "After all, you can't bite the hand that feeds you." Xia Xiang came from a poor family. His mother had passed away early, and his father was an alcoholic. As a result, his meager allowance of 50 yuan a week often left him so hungry that his stomach would cramp during class. In my previous life, I pitied his fragile pride and would always accidentally bring an extra, hearty breakfast, pretending I couldn't finish it, and by the way give it to him. Over time, he went from initially awkwardly refusing to silently accepting, using tutoring in math to maintain his fragile self-esteem. Actually, my math has always been decent, but for Xia Xiang's sake, I'm happy to let him take the credit. On the first morning after my rebirth, I sat in my seat, leisurely enjoying a meat floss and cheese sandwich prepared by the housekeeper, accompanied by warm milk. Xia Xiang walked into the classroom with his head down, carrying a deliberately cultivated air of melancholy. Just as he always did, he sat down in his usual spot and habitually reached into the desk compartment only to find it empty. His body stiffened slightly as he turned his head in surprise. His lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but I pretended not to notice. Took a sip of milk. Squinted contentedly, and let my gaze drift past him toward the morning sun outside the window. He seemed somewhat distracted all morning, glancing at me several times with a hesitant look, as if wanting to say something, each time when he turned back to hand in his homework. And I always regarded him as heir. Xiao Han, you didn't bring breakfast for Xia Xuaba today, did you? My deskmate finally couldn't hold back and quietly asked me again. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet classroom break, it was enough for those sitting in the front row to hear clearly. I lifted a smile that was as natural as could be, my voice crisp. What's wrong? He hasn't paid me. So why should I bring it for him every day? As soon as the words left my mouth, I clearly saw Xia Xiang's back stiffen abruptly. The exposed part of his neck outside the school uniform collar instantly turned from white to red, as if he had been slapped hard across the face. For the entire day, he didn't turn around again. When the evening self-study bell rang, I, a day student, stood by the podium and raised my voice. Does anyone need breakfast bought from outside the school tomorrow morning? No delivery fee. Just pay for the meal yourself. The boarders immediately gathered around, chattering excitedly about what they wanted to eat. My desk was instantly piled with coins and small notes listing their meal choices. Amid the bustling crowd, I caught a glimpse of Xia Xiang sitting alone at his seat, his back thin and lonely. Humph, what a show-off. Xia Xiang, I deliberately spoke when the crowd had quieted slightly, my voice carrying an innocent smile. What do you want to eat? As if finally waiting for my question. His tense shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly. He turned around, his eyes even carrying a hint of anticipation, as if he felt valued. All right then. Auntie's Jianbing from West Street. No scallions, please. After saying that, he instinctively started to turn away, as if the matter was already settled. Sure, I replied with an unchanged smile, extending my hand toward him, palm facing up. 7 yuan. The air instantly froze. The classmates gathered around also fell silent, their eyes darting between us. Xia Xiang's face turned pale in an instant. He lowered his head awkwardly, fumbling in the pockets of his washed-out school uniform. After a long pause, he finally spoke again, his voice tinged with embarrassment. I'll give it to you tomorrow. Sorry. No credit. I interrupted him, looking down at him. Xia, the top student, you can't keep freeloading forever, can you? The probing, suddenly understanding gazes around him pierced him like needles. Some insiders noticed the unusual tension between us, but wisely chose not to say anything. He kept his head down tightly, wishing he could sink into the ground. I'll pay for him. A girl stepped forward, slapping a 5 yuan note and 2 coins onto my table with a crisp sound. Xia Xiang said nothing and almost fled the classroom. I stood among the crowd, glaring at his back with disgust, my heart cold and indifferent. Xia Xiang, this is only the beginning. Your pride is truly worthless. Same as in the previous life. This month, that delinquent girl from outside school, Lin Yan, once again began to harass and corner Xia Xiang in terrifying ways. And I watched coldly. I watched him being blocked at the school gate, watched him hide in the alley, watched his brows furrow, saw the fear in his eyes, until he even dared not go home alone. Several times after school, I saw his slender figure lingering near my family's car. His gaze carried a nauseating mix of arrogance and grievance. Time and again, he would approach the car window waiting for me, as I used to roll it down and gently invite him in, to take him home. And in this life, I simply raised the black car window with an expressionless face, completely shutting him and his nauseating performance out. Through the cold glass, I watched him hunching his shoulders at the school gate, like a stray dog, looking so pitiful and ridiculous in the biting wind. In my mind, the final scene of my previous life involuntarily surfaced. Him and Lin Yan on the disheveled hotel sheets. The ruthless look in his eyes as he choked me. If it weren't for you being unable to have children. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach. and hatred burned like a poisonous fire, searing through my internal organs. Unable to bear it any longer, Xia Xiang took the initiative to go to the local police station, trying to seek help from the police in an attempt to break free from Lin Nian with external assistance. The officer at that local police station was a distant cousin of Lin Nian. This cousin casually mentioned the matter to Lin Nian's hot-tempered father, who loved putting on a show of face. The outcome was predictable. Lin Nian was given a thorough and severe beating by her father with a leather belt. This family discipline completely ignited Lin Nian's anger over her unrequited love for Xia Xiang. She blamed all the humiliation and pain on Xia Xiang. So, she gathered a group of social youths she usually hung out with, determined to give Xia Xiang a good lesson this time. Realizing that Xia Xiang might have also been reborn, this twist occurred on the afternoon when he was beaten by Lin Nian. That afternoon, I had originally gone there just to watch the show, but I never expected to hear Xia Xiang confess his feelings to Lin Nian. "Don't. Please. Leave me alone." A pleading voice, tinged with tears, came from the toilet. Lin Nian held a cigarette in his mouth, slowly exhaling a white ring of smoke that drifted straight toward Xia Xiang's pale face. "Your sister taking a fancy to you is your good fortune, and you still dare to complain. You think you're getting away with it, huh?" Her voice carried her own unique roguish tone, her eyes fierce. The surrounding lackeys chimed in with mocking laughter, delivering another round of intense affection to Xia Xiang's abdomen and back. "Last time I'm asking you." Lin Nian swept her hair back, her heavily smoky-eyed face leaning in close to him. "Do you agree or not?" "I don't." Xia Xiang almost instinctively refused, a faint glimmer of hope still lingering in his heart, hoping someone would come to save him. However, the anticipated rescue did not arrive, because in the next moment, the consciousness of Xia Xiang, who had already achieved success and shed his youthful naivety, suddenly poured into this 17-year-old body that was suffering from bullying. He blinked in astonishment, looking at Lin Nian before him, who was dressed rebelliously and wore exaggerated makeup that couldn't hide her youth. Almost in the blink of an eye, he made a decision. Without a moment's hesitation, he scrambled up from the filthy ground, ignoring the dust on his clothes, and knelt on one knee before Lin Nian. In a tone completely different from before, he spoke with deep emotion. "Nian Nian, I know you like me. Let's be together, okay?" This sudden reversal left everyone stunned. The surrounding lackeys exchanged bewildered glances, their raised fists forgotten in midair. The Y in Lin Nian's mouth fell to the ground with a plop, sparks flying. She was completely stunned, utterly unprepared for Xia Xiang's attitude to make a 180-degree turn. "Really?" she asked suspiciously, utterly confused. Like a monk trying to grasp a riddle, Xia Xiang's mind was flooded with images from last night, the passionate, intimate moments with the mature and alluring Lin Nian. Faced with this youthful version of his secret lover, he couldn't care less about the setting. He stood up abruptly, took a step forward, and with an air of dominance, cupped Lin Nian's face before planting a fierce kiss on her lips. Lin Nian had dated plenty of people, but never had she experienced anything this thrilling or full of such stark contrasts. Having achieved her goal, she stood dazed for a moment, then felt a surge of triumphant satisfaction. "0. Nian Nian." Xia Xiang gasped as he pulled away, his forehead resting against hers, his voice deliberately lowered, carrying a seductive tone. "I will make up for all those years we missed between us." The surrounding followers snapped out of their shock and immediately erupted into teasing screams, pulling out their phones to frantically take photos and videos of the couple who had just been at odds but were now embracing each other. And I, standing quietly in the shadows at the entrance of the alley, held up my phone and clearly pressed the red end recording button. Ah! What a magnificent love of a masochist. I put away my phone and silently left that chaotic alley entrance. Xia Xiang's defection clearly pleased Lin Nian. From that day on, the two of them secretly got together. But Xia Xiang knew all too well that in their youth, Lin Nian had nothing but the audacity to navigate the underworld. He enjoyed her youthful body and blind admiration, but he yearned even more for the lavish, high society life he had experienced in his previous life. After one intimate moment, he held Lin Nian close and whispered in her ear. Nian Nian, if you stay with me now, you'll only suffer. But once we get the money from Yang Han's family, what good life won't we have in the future? He painted a future of mansions, sports cars, and designer bags, framing my plan as a great strategy for their love. Lin Nian initially flared up when she heard my name, but Xia Xiang knew her too well, using a mix of pressure and persuasion, along with their dire circumstances. After all, Xia Xiang was now so strapped for cash that he couldn't even afford to treat her to a decent cup of milk tea. In the end, she reluctantly agreed. After all, in her understanding, there was no such thing as morality, everything was about money. And so, at school, Xia Xiang began his clumsy performance. He seems to have completely forgotten my indifference toward him over the past month since my rebirth, instead showering me with excessive attention. His worldly gaze carries an unmistakable air of affectation. Every time I see him, I feel nothing but a churning in my stomach. So, I respond to him with the most direct form of disregard. When collecting assignments, I would bypass his desk, ignore his comments during discussions, and glance over him as if he were just a wisp of air. After several such instances, the confusion in Xia Xiang's eyes gradually turned into shock and suspicion. He tentatively placed a bottle of a brand of drink I often drank in my previous life on the corner of my desk. I directly threw it into the trash can behind me right in front of him. Expressionless. At that moment, I clearly saw his pupils contract sharply, and the color drained from his face. He understood. The young Han who had once cherished him and was willing to give everything for him had returned, and she came back with an intense, deep-seated hatred for him. All his calculations and performances were nothing but clumsy jokes in front of me. The path of seducing me was completely blocked, and Xia Xiang fell into a brief panic. But it was soon replaced by the arrogance of a reborn individual. I will definitely give you a good life, he said, holding Lin Nian. His tone filled with a blustering certainty. He was comforting Lin Nian. But even more so, he was trying to convince himself. Nian Nian, do you know? My mind holds the business trends and opportunities of the next decade. Even without relying on Yang Han, I, Xia Xiang, can still start from scratch and thrive. Wait for me until I get into a top university after the college entrance exam. Nian Nian. You must wait for me. Xia Xiang had long been blinded by the success of his past life and the superiority of his foreknowledge. He had completely overestimated his ability to control this young mind and the vast amount of information. Those vague business concepts, without detailed data support and a strong execution team, were nothing but castles in the air. I am well aware of all this, so I'm not worried that Xia Xiang will make a comeback without any support. Nothing at all. What's there to start? Starting with his empty house. At first, Xia Xiang had also harbored a slight concern, fearing that I, the reborn one, might use my foreknowledge to strike him precisely. But after observing for a while, he realized that I simply treated him as if he didn't exist, which actually made him feel relieved, and even somewhat amusingly grateful. The law can't reach into a past life. He comforted himself this way, interpreting my deep-seated hatred as a kind of unspoken agreement to leave each other alone. Since the shortcut was blocked, he decided to lie low for the time being, relying on his ahead-of-time insights to make a splash in the college entrance exam, aiming for a more prestigious university than in his previous life, using it as a stepping stone. However, while the ideal was full, reality dealt him a heavy blow. Years after graduation, he had long forgotten all the tedious basic knowledge from high school. Formulas, theorems, classical Chinese texts. These required content that needed deep focus to memorize and understand, which for him, a former CEO accustomed to strategizing over wine tables and in meetings, was nothing short of torture. He was used to having his secretary place neatly organized reports on his desk, and to having subordinates present various options for him to choose and decide upon. Now, he was expected to calculate a solid geometry problem from scratch and memorize lengthy English passages. Just thinking about those complex symbols and the passages that required rote memorization gave him a physical headache and a sense of irritation. His math grades plummeted, falling from the top of his grade to barely passing. Other subjects that required long-term accumulation were even more dismal. Having been away from a learning environment for so long, he had long since lost the patience and ability to focus deeply in the face of societal competition. Seeing my name firmly in the top 10 of the honor roll, his hatred for me grew even stronger. He doesn't understand why I've made rapid progress after my rebirth, while he has remained stagnant. What he didn't know was that the private tutor my parents hired for 1,000 yuan per session was worth every penny. A level of service and enjoyment he could never attain in his lifetime. During the winter vacation at the end of the first semester of senior year, Xia Xiang completely gave up on his idea of getting into a good school. What drove him to make this decision was not just academic setbacks, but also the immense suffering brought by poverty. Having grown accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, he found it completely unbearable to live in such financial straits. He even had to endure the harsh criticism from his alcoholic father. Countless times, he wanted to smash a bottle over that man's head, but for the sake of survival and the future, he restrained his impulses. Even more awkward was the fact that he had to calculate for half a day just to treat Lin Nian to a decent street stall meal. As a result, Lin Nian gradually lost patience with him. She was never short of men eager to flatter her, even if most were hooligans. At least they could treat her to drinks and songs, and give her cheap but nice little trinkets. Xia Xiang had nothing substantial to offer, just a decent-looking face and a mouth that could only draw big pies. Every day, all they talk about is the future and billion-dollar deals. Sometimes she wonders if Xia Xiang has gone crazy from studying. What pushed their relationship to the brink of collapse was the way reality wore down their passion. They didn't have the money to get a hotel room, so their dates could only take place. I can't help it if it's censored. The initial emotions and freshness had long been exhausted in this awkward and unbearable situation. Each time felt like a shoddy transaction, devoid of any warmth. Every time she looked at Xia Xiang, she felt the man in front of her had no charm at all. So Lin Nian's gaze towards him gradually shifted from initial desire for conquest to undisguised disdain and impatience. Xia Xiang panicked. He felt that none of this was what he wanted. Thus, he came begging to me once again. Cornered by reality, a wild and despicable idea began to take root in Xia Xiang's mind. He found me, no longer pretending to be deeply affectionate, but with a twisted, reckless desperation, blocking my way home from school. Young Han. His voice was hoarse, his eyes filled with resentment and a nauseating sense of duty. A foul smell emanated from his mouth. I know you hate me, but in the last life, I owed you. In this life, let me make it up to you. I looked at him coldly, as if watching a stinking pile of mud. Seeing me silent, he seemed encouraged and spoke urgently. I can't let your great family and vast business have no heir. I will definitely make you conceive a child in this lifetime. This is my greatest compensation to you. His following words were cut off by my resounding slap. Compensation. I almost laughed out loud. Using your disgusting body and scheming. Xia Xiang, you're truly rotten to the core. He covered his face, a flicker of cruelty flashing in his eyes, as if he still wanted to keep harassing me. But I didn't give him a chance. I pulled out my phone and dialed the emergency number right in front of him. He thought I was just bluffing, until the police car screeched to a halt and took him away. The drink he planned to spike had long been discovered by me and submitted as evidence. With surveillance footage, solid evidence from witnesses, my unwavering refusal to settle, and the legal pressure applied by the lawyer, Xia Xiang's charge of indecent assault was set in stone. Content censored here. But that wasn't enough. During his detention, I anonymously posted on the largest local online forum the video I had recorded in the bathroom showing him kneeling to profess his love and embracing Lin Nian. The title was blunt and sarcastic. The true face of Haicheng's devoted scholar, a sadomasochist and a school bully's sincere love. Although the video was quickly taken down by the platform due to involving minors, it had already been downloaded and shared countless times. For a time, Xia Xiang and Lin Nian became the laughingstock of Haicheng. Ultimately, due to the severe nature of the incident, it caused a negative social impact. Xia Xiang was sentenced to 5 years in prison. I did not waste another moment of my time on him. Leveraging the foresight of a reborn individual, I precisely provided direction for several key transformations of the family business. Let my parents' company ride the waves of the economic tide, thriving and flourishing. After graduating from high school, I chose to study abroad, gaining knowledge and broadening my horizons at world-renowned universities. 5 years is enough time to change many things. Upon returning home with my studies completed, I took over the family business with undeniable ability and vision. Becoming the youngest and most prominent new tycoon in Haicheng's business world, I stepped onto the stage, no longer the woman who silently gave behind the scenes. Under the spotlight, I am confident and composed. No longer the foolish girl who would block a knife for a worthless man. I cannot deny the courage I once had in my love. Nor will I belittle the version of myself from a past life who was deceived. Because the guilty one was never me. Although I didn't deliberately ask about Xia Xiang's news, some well-meaning people still told me about it. In the year Xia Xiang was imprisoned, Lin Nian discovered she was pregnant. The chaotic lifestyle and repeated improper attempts at claw machine games led doctors to warn her that if she terminated this pregnancy, she might never be able to conceive again. Under duress, she reluctantly gave birth to the child. The child was born with deformities, congenital absence of an anus and severe atrophy of both hands caused by the mother's smoking and heavy drinking during pregnancy. As one might expect, Lin Nian was beaten half to death by her furious father and directly driven out of the house. With nowhere else to go, she could only drag her weak body and child to live in Xia Xiang's home, which was bare and had an alcoholic father. The heavy pressures of life, the pointing fingers of others, and the harsh attitude of Xia Xiang's father wore away the last traces of her youthful arrogance, leaving only numbness and resentment. 5 years later, a high school class reunion, in the luxurious hotel private room. Classmates chatted and laughed, exchanging updates on each other's lives. My former desk mate, now a teacher at a middle school, sat down beside me, looking at the confident and powerful person I had become. She was filled with emotion. I never would have imagined. Young Han, she whispered, her tone tinged with a hint of lingering fear. Back then, Xia Xiang seemed such a reserved and ambitious person. How could he have done something so terrible? I swayed the wine glass in my hand, my gaze calmly fixed on the neon lights of the city outside the window. Often, people don't fundamentally change just because their circumstances shift. My voice was soft, carrying the clarity of someone who has seen too much of the world. They were just in the environment, their desires amplified, for things they had never truly possessed, or had once had and then lost. They became especially greedy, so much so that they would stop at nothing, becoming repulsive in their pursuit. His desk mate nodded thoughtfully. After 5 years, Xia Xiang walked out of the prison gates. The sunlight outside the high walls stung his eyes, blinding him, and illuminated the deep numbness and weariness in his soul. These 5 years have smoothed out the ridiculous arrogance he brought with him upon his rebirth, and have also made him see a bloody reality with utmost clarity. Every step of his so-called success in his previous life was soaked in my dedication and nourished by the resources of my family. Without me, he is nothing. Dragging his simple luggage, he returned to that place in his memory, dilapidated, yet the only place that could be called home. However, what awaited him at home was a hell more suffocating than prison. Lin Nian had long been worn down by poverty and the heavy burden of raising children. Her youthful arrogance completely vanished, leaving only a bitter resentment toward life and an intense loathing for him. Seeing him return, she couldn't even be bothered to lift an eyelid, offering only icy sarcasm. "Oh, the convict's back. We don't have anything extra for you to eat at home." His alcoholic father was even more indifferent to this utterly disgraceful son. What stung Xia Xiang the most was that son, huddled in the corner, born with a disability. His personality was also exceptionally withdrawn. He didn't even look at Xia Xiang, just played with a cigarette pack. Xia Xiang felt a wave of overwhelming despair. His life seemed trapped in a rusted, iron cage, devoid of any light. But he was not willing to accept it. That lingering pride from his past life, or perhaps an unrealistic fantasy, still struggled within him. He tried to use the fragmentary financial knowledge left in his memory to fight in the stock market, hoping to grasp the last straw. But in this life, due to the intervention of this reborn butterfly me, the landscape of many industries and the fates of enterprises had already quietly changed. The stocks he once remembered as sure winners performed poorly. Some even plummeted dramatically. After much effort, he could only barely earn a meager living, far from enough to change his family's plight, let alone fulfill his ambition to turn things around. The cruel jokes of fate came one after another. One late night, he accidentally stumbled upon a horrifying scene. His drunken father was entangled with Lin Yan, both of them disheveled and in a compromising position. The immense humiliation and rage instantly shattered Xia Xiang's sanity. He screamed and lunged forward, vowing to expose their disgusting incestuous relationship. In the chaos, the two, caught in their shameful secret, driven by extreme fear and shame, turned vicious in desperation, taking advantage of Xia Xiang's emotional agitation and lack of vigilance. Lin Yan exchanged a glance with his father, and together they pressed him firmly onto the worn-out bed with unspoken understanding, struggling, kicking, finally falling into silence. In the final seconds of his consciousness, Xia Xiang's mind flashed with scenes from his previous life. Like a flickering lantern show, in the hotel suite, how he and Lin Yan used a scarf to strangle Yang Han from behind. So, this is what they mean by evil begets evil, the cycle of cause and effect. His eyes widened as he took his last breath, his face frozen in endless regret and a sudden, clear fear. In a brightly lit top-floor office somewhere in Haicheng, I was reviewing the company's strategic plan for the next quarter. Outside the window, the bustling city nightscape glittered with neon lights. Much like my own flourishing life, everything about Xia Xiang had long since scattered like dust in the breeze, leaving no trace in my life. My world is vast and bright, and the future holds endless stars and seas waiting for me to conquer. The end.